I wanna hold my head up high, so high. Whoa, think good thoughts, think good thoughts. Imagine what the world would be if we would think good thoughts. Wouldn't that be something? I won't let negativity become my enemy. I promise I won't let it get the best of me. That's how I want to be. Na na na, na 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 na. Whoa, whoa, na 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 na. Sing it with me. And think good thoughts, think good thoughts. Imagine what the world would be if we would think good thoughts. Wouldn't that be something? Yeah, once more. Think good thoughts, think good thoughts. Imagine what the world would be if we would think good thoughts. Wouldn't that be something? I won't let negativity become my enemy. I promise I won't let it get the best of me. That's how I want to be. That's how I want to be. Thank you.
So there's this guy, his name is Doug. Doug Pender is his name. Doug lived all of his life in the Florida Keys, and now he's on his deathbed, and he knows the end is near. His nurse, his wife, his daughter, his 2 sons are with him, and then he asks for 2 witnesses to be present and a camcorder in place to record his last wishes. And when all is ready, he begins to speak. My son Bernie, I want you to take the Ocean Reef houses. My dear daughter Sybil, I want you to have the apartments between mile marker 100 and Tavernier. My son Jamie, I want you to take the offices over in Marathon Government Center. Sarah, my dear wife, please take all of the residential buildings on the bay side of Blackwater Sound. The nurse and the witnesses are blown away as they did not realize his extensive real estate holdings. And as Doug slips away, the nurse says, "Oh, Mrs. Pender, your husband must have worked so hard to have accumulated all of this property." She goes, "Geez, it was his paper route." So, you can wish for yourself a good life, but don't always wish that same good life on others. I want to cover 2 areas this morning, one leading into the other, and end with a little thought homework for you, but I guess that's what I do every week, right? We're working, again, I forgot the book. What is Living the Science of Mind? I keep wanting to show it to you in case people haven't seen that before. We're going to get one. Yeah, go get one. And I'll make sure some more are out on the shelves, because that's what we're working with our themes for the months through this year. And so my title today for my talk is Common Sense and Thinking Affirmatively. So that was a great song, Rick. That was kind of fun. Think positively, we're going to think affirmatively. And I think Mr. Doug Pender was certainly thinking affirmatively for his family, but I'm not sure they were thinking along those same lines. Anyway, I sometimes go through life and wonder where I get some of the ideas in my head. I wonder where they come from sometimes. On a real serious kind of note, I wonder why it is that I react to certain things the way I do, why I feel about certain things the way I do. Where did that come from? If I don't have an actual moment of time where I learned something, but I can have visceral reactions to things or judgments about things. And I wonder, how did that come up? And they can be about me, they can be about my family, they can be, maybe like the area where I lived back on the East Coast, or even other cultures of people that I've experienced. And I don't think I'm alone in questioning myself about these things, but I don't think questioning like that is a normal process for most people unless you've been through some kind of wanting to kind of figure out where you came from, sort of like that. It's not a regular part of our thinking. Every person here, including myself, is a culmination of every thought that we've ever experienced in our life. Are you aware of that? So I have these, I have a lot of innate stuff inside of me, if that's the right word to use, but feelings and judgments and thoughts about things that I have accumulated all of my life, and even in utero, they say, you are picking up things now even before you're born. So each of us are a combination of everything we've ever heard or thought, and it all stays with us consciously and unconsciously, and we're also a part of the collective consciousness. And so when I say the collective unconscious. And that is the sum total of all human emotions from time immemorial, as the definition goes. We are continuously influenced by it until we reach a point of something triggering that question. I wonder where I got that notion from. I wonder what it is about that thing I just heard or felt that makes me even fear something. So where do those questions and things come from? Sigmund Freud taught that we're always prone to the patterns of thought that we've heard somewhere in our life, and especially if they have emotion attached to them and some negativity, and we'll repeat them over and over again. And then Carl Jung did even more work, a lot of extensive work, when he learned more about that collective unconscious and how that influences us throughout our lifetime without really ever knowing it. Religion is one of those biggest collective ideas that cause people to sometimes live in fear or feel that they must conform to live life under a certain influence or a certain pattern. And religion can be really cellular and even visceral for some people whose families have lived in certain conditional religions for generations and generations. And they live through what we call blind faith. Some live in fear of what that higher God may do for them if they're not following those patterns. And for some, it's superstition that they just don't recognize how to release and let go of. For me, life like that made no sense. I need things that are tangible. So, and I don't think I'm different from a lot of people who have fallen into our New Thought movement. We want something different. Science of mind or some form of a spirituality thought process allows a freedom of the questioning. And those of us who live this now, and I think for a lot of you, we fell into this because we wanted more answers. The answers that we grew up just kind of weren't covering things the way we felt what we needed to know. We needed something else. I find real joy in this science of mind material, in all of this New Thought stuff, in the quantum physics, because it brought religion and spirituality and the universe alive for me. The deeper I got into it, I feel like I can touch spirit, and I know that spirit touches me. I have learned how to work prayer and this spiritual mind treatment, and I have a very straightforward understanding of how it works. And I'm not guessing or hoping or wishing. I am knowing what this is doing for me. And that's the way we teach that. So for me, the superstition and the blind faith is kind of the controlling idea, and that's not what I want for me. I want the science behind something. I want it to make sense to me. I want it to be common sense for me in how I choose to work my life. And it brings me into this moment and really here with you. I want to work my life under this program and under this philosophy. So I will say, though, in a moment of honesty, see, we don't have any, do we? I got to make that call tomorrow. Okay, we'll have that book on the shelf. So a moment of honesty is that every now and then, even though I have this strong understanding and design, in this philosophy, every now and then I get to that point, like, I wonder what planet I must have come from, because none of my family believes this way or lives this way. Most of my friends, outside of here, don't believe in this. They think I'm a nut. I have learned really the hard way not to talk about how I believe about something. When they start talking about what they believe, I go, uh-huh. So, right? It's like, learn the hard way, don't bring it up. I also have, every now and then I get to a point where I really kind of get to the edge of things. And I'm kind of like on the ledge. Do I even want to do this anymore? Because, gosh, all my friends, other friends don't think this way. They don't study all this stuff. Their lives look okay. This is hard work. Like, I'm just going to give it up. And every time I decide to do that, all of a sudden, Spirit does a very interesting thing. It drops something right in my path that I trip over to remind me that it's alive and it works with me and it's right here, and that what I'm thinking and doing and the way I live my life right now is exactly the way I'm supposed to be thinking and living and behaving. So I like that. This stuff makes sense to me. It's common sense for my life. In my reading, I came across a daily prayer that Ernest Holmes suggests that is good when we find ourselves in that place of recognizing that, yes, this stuff works, but maybe we have a doubt every now and then. And the prayer goes like this: I am not bound by the superstitions of the race. I no longer fear God or the universe in which I live. I have implicit confidence in the supreme good, and I permit it to flow through me and to bless everything I contact. I like that. I'm going to say a couple quotes from Ernest Holmes and some other people today, probably more than I usually do. And so what I have done is I have printed all of them, and they're on a paper out on the table. So if you want to be remembered of some things this week, you can take those with you. So I've come to the conclusion for me that not living a life in a rigid religion that is like that bowling alley sort of, or a culture of repeating patterns that takes a lot of work, what I do now is not easy. It takes continual work, keeping the information in front of you and doing the work every day. But I like it because I live in freedom. It's my choice, and I can do it at my pace. And I know that the God source that made me loves me, and the universe loves me and loves you. It doesn't judge which way we decide to do this. It doesn't judge anybody who still stays in a formal religion that has strict outlines for how they should do their life. And it doesn't judge people like myself who want to be kind of a free thinker about things. It is all perfect for every individual. And so the key to this for me is thinking affirmatively and keeping this information flowing for me. And that's the next area that I want to go in, thinking affirmatively. We teach that thinking affirmatively draws our good to us. And the quote by Ernest Holmes that I've used a couple times over the past few weeks is, there is a power in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. This power is the God source. It is spirit. It is the thing that created each of us and lives within us. It is the thing that created us from love and continues to love us, not judge us, and it gives each person what they desire to the level that they think they can accept it, and to the level that they understand how they can accept it and receive it. Does that make sense? Okay, so some of us don't believe we can have love. Some of us don't believe we can be abundant and live in prosperity. And that's because of all that unconscious stuff that we have and those beliefs that we've accumulated, and we still don't always realize how much is unconscious. And so all of that contributes to what we can receive and how much we understand that receiving, because how many of us were taught that we can't receive. And I grew up in a family that I wasn't supposed to even accept gifts because that was kind of like overstepping a boundary somewhere. So accepting is something I really had to learn, accepting anything. So how do we shift from those hidden thought patterns of negativity and lack to affirmative thoughts of well-being, of abundance, and that it's okay to receive the things that we desire in our life? If you read much of the work by Ernest Holmes, it's not real easy reading, but you see the terms a lot. You'll see praying effectively, and you'll see the word ignorance, and I've used that a couple times recently too. And ignorance just means that there's more information that we haven't learned yet. That's all it means. And I wanted to bring that up because some people from an early age may have been taught that the word ignorance, or as little kids we call it people ignoramus or something, little terms like that, was kind of a negative term. And Ernest Holmes doesn't use that term negatively. He uses it in such a way just to say that there's information we don't know yet. And once we learn it, then, there's a whole new thing we get from that. So praying effectively is all about stating the purpose of your prayer, declaring it's done, and knowing in capital letters that it is so. In our teaching, we don't ask Spirit for anything. We don't ask God to do something for us because we believe the infinite Creator is actually waiting patiently in loving patience for us to claim what we want. And we do that through affirmative thought and our desire and being able to accept that. Jesus said, "When ye pray, believe that ye receive and ye shall have." We are surrounded by a creative mind, which is spirit, and the creative process, which reacts to our thought. So the creative process, we're working a lot with that in our classwork and in the practitioner training. Spirit has an idea, we have an idea. There is a substance in the universe that we call the law, which is a mechanic that actually brings your desire to you in the form in which you are thinking that you want to receive it. So that's the creative process. And all of this reacts to our thought. Not only our thoughts, but our emotions, our feelings, and also the images in your head. I've said before, thought plus feeling equals the outcome or the demonstration that you're wanting. But also the pictures in your head and your imagination have a lot to do with that, because your imagination and your pictures touch cellular places in your body. All of it reacts and works together. And the mind, the body, they now know very clearly, does not know the difference between a picture and an imagination and a real event, which is why your body reacts the way it does. So when we say thought, you have a thought, an idea about something, plus the feeling and emotion of it, and then the picture of it is really what brings forth that positive thing that you want in your life, or that change that you want to make. And Jesus again said, "It is done unto us as we believe." I checked the Abraham quotes this morning. I get those daily. And it's almost as if they were working right there with me this morning. And it said, wellness that is being allowed, or the wellness that is being denied, is all about the mindset, the mood, the attitude, the practiced thoughts. There is not one exception in any human or beast, because you can patch them up again and again and they'll still find another way of reverting back to the natural rhythm of their mind. It is all psychosomatic, every bit of it, no exceptions. I've often wondered what Esther and Jerry thought when Jerry was diagnosed with leukemia and then passed away from leukemia. Although when you have Abraham right there with you all day long and you can ask questions, you get a lot of answers, which a lot of us don't. They felt Jerry would be more useful on the other side. And we're just working from that direction. That doesn't make everybody feel good, but I also have a wonderful spiritual minister teacher in San Diego that I worked with when I was in school. She still is an amazing individual. And she was recently diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. You kind of think when you see people who have that level of spirituality and understanding and knowledge about things that they should be immune to stuff like that. But I don't have all the answers, No one does. But I do believe that this information, I believe that in this information that our thoughts and our subconscious beliefs play a big part in what happens with our lives and what we draw to us. That's what this information is about. I believe that we cannot know another person's spiritual journey in life and why they do something and why one gets sick and another doesn't. We have no idea what that's about because every person is different. And I believe that there is an absolute possibility for each person to find their way around that and what works for them by how we use our thought and our thinking in our lives. And I absolutely believe that the God source that is loving and working in the world today, no matter what shows up on your television, no matter what they want us to see, which they certainly discern in their own ratings on television, that what we see and hear on the news today is very limiting. I like to listen to KSL Talk Radio only in the mornings. I like Doug Wright. I met him years ago when I worked for the soccer team in the stadium, and I've always felt he's a very balanced and fair talk show host compared to a lot of others. So last Friday he made a comment that really kind of stopped me for a moment in my tracks. Actually, he said that despite what we hear in the news today, that our children are safer today. Statistically, our children are safer today than they have been since the 50s. And I actually had to go, what? Wait a minute. That's not what I'm seeing in the news. And he said, it is according to statistics. Now, obviously, with instant news and smartphones and social media and the constant flow of stuff that's coming from every direction, statistics you would think are documented, right? Over and over again. They throw them at us. But however, by the numbers, it's not what we think. Our children are safer today than they've ever been. And that really made me think about that. Because all that negativity that I read that's going on and that we see in the news and that works around me all the time. I know some people don't do the news and have televisions, and I congratulate you, and because I'm back in that again, like I said. But what do you think that negativity does to your heads and to the energy in your body? And what you project out. So if we're wanting to think affirmatively and try to change some of our thoughts about things and even what we want to think and believe, we have to have a conscious awareness of what that negativity from the news is doing to us. And you may not think of it as negative or negativity. I'm not sure what other word to use about that, but it is something that I think needs to be in our awareness. If you're one of those ones who can compartmentalize that and look at that and even say, wait a minute, okay, and even say a prayer when you see it, I like that. That's good. A lot of people do that. But it swirls around in your head and in your thought. So what is that doing to us? How do we wash out those negative news cycles and the negativity that they want us to think? How do we wash that out of our heads when you want to think affirmatively for yourself? So take a breath and let it wash. Let it just slip away for the moment. So our title is Thinking Affirmatively. How do we get there? We are surrounded by the creative mind, which reacts to our thoughts. So it's time to change our thought. And how do we do that? Louise Hay says, the point of power is always in the present moment. You are never stuck. This is where the changes take place, right here, right now, in our own mind. It doesn't matter how long we've had a negative pattern or an illness or a poor relationship or lack of finances or even self-hatred. We can begin to make the shift today. Remember, you are the only person who thinks in your mind. You are the power and the authority of your world. Agreed? I like that. State the change you want to make. What do you desire? Picture it. Visualize yourself as that change. Create a mental picture of yourself as you want to be. Hand this picture over to Spirit and believe and know implicitly that Spirit acts on this. If it's hard for you to see yourself in that change, that's the moment you know you have a hidden belief that says, no, you can't. That's when you say, yes, and create the image and the feeling of the thing that you want. You say, yes. Practice it. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's okay to be healthy. Yes. It's okay to be loved. Yes. It's okay to be in an abundant financial flow. Yes. Earlier in the talk, I mentioned that we have within us the sum total of all the thoughts we've ever had, even as far back, as I said, even before we were born, because we picked up that stuff from our parents and we buried it so much. And our thoughts either attract our good or they push it away, depending on what our thought and our image is of ourself. I remember Reverend Donald taught me that money follows love. I had to work that. I have to admit, that took me a couple years to figure that out because I was so disconnected from money and love, I couldn't put it together. But when we love ourselves and we recognize that we have love within us, that attracts financial prosperity. And when we don't quite have that level of love that God actually has placed within us, if we can't find that, we may have money come to us, but it trickles out your fingers, right between it, and goes away very quickly. So think about when that's come and go for you in your life. Love, money, prosperity follows love. So it's time to weed the garden. If you have thoughts that are negative or in lack, it's time to weed those thoughts out. You now have this picture and thought of a positive thing you want, so you let go of those thoughts of negativity and those thoughts, those repeating thought patterns that you had in the past. And every time they might come up because they keep trying to fight their way back and say, you can't have that, you say, yes, I can. Practice. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Can we think positively about ourselves and the world around us on a constant basis? Yes, I can. It does not mean that we condone bad behavior, and it does not mean that we make excuses for perpetrators, but it does mean that we're in control of our thoughts, our energy, and what shows up around us and for us. We can't control the other person, but we can certainly control our own space. So we must have faith and conviction and determination in what we claim for ourselves. We can practice affirmative prayer by saying, I do have faith, I do have conviction, I do believe, I do know and understand that there is a power greater than I am, and I do realize that I can use it. There is nothing in me that can doubt, deny, or limit this power. My whole being accepts it both consciously and unconsciously. And by doing this, we prepare our minds to think affirmatively and to pray effectively. Every thought is a prayer. And when you visit with one of our practitioners who pray with you, they are supporting that affirmation for your desire. You are the only one you have to prove this to, right? You don't have to prove this to anybody else around you. You do it yourself, and you can prove it to you. That's the science part of this philosophy that I personally love, because it works and it repeats itself when you do it. So every quote that I have mentioned today, I have printed out on a paper on the table across the hall. If you would like to take one of those with you, I find them quite powerful. But this, and if we run out, we'll make more. This is a do-it-yourself kind of work. You have to work it. But there is a power in the universe doing it with you every step of the way. You are never alone in this work. Got it? Good. Okay. Let's just take this into prayer. So I invite the practitioners to stand around the room. So if you'll close your eyes with me and hear these words as your own. I recognize that there is only one life. I recognize right here, right now, that there is that one source of love, of all that is, of divine expression and divine true love that expresses itself through every creation, everything, every person that has been made. It is that thing I call God. It is that God source, the creative point of the universe and life that lives and moves and has its being in every individual. I recognize that that spirit, that God, needs to express itself continuously. So it does that through each person. And so as I open my mind to the creative flow of this generous universal expression, I know that as I think affirmatively and I state my desire, I allow that desire and that positive acknowledgement of that to overtake me and wash out every doubt or negative thought I have ever been taught. So I let that just leave my expression so that I am always in that affirmative idea of what I am, what I come from, what I can be, and the possibilities of my life and the life of every individual in this room. And I let that vibrate out to all of this town and this planet, because all of it is God. And all of it is in the guiding expression of that divine thing I call God. And God waits in that loving patience for every individual, for every person to become aware of the idea of stating a desire, of seeing it, feeling it, knowing it, and claiming it, that it can come alive in their life. And that is good and very good. And so using that, I know and I claim right now a generous prosperity and divine well-being for every individual in this room and in this center and in this place. I claim a guiding expression of love and oneness for the leaders of our country, and an overwhelming, joyful, abundant expression of life and prosperity for every person on this United States and for the world. And I claim and know a growth in love and understanding and oneness towards every individual of every culture on this planet. And I call it good and very good. And with absolute joy and gratitude in my heart, knowing the truth of this, knowing that I have the truth of this affirmative prayer, and claiming it just so, I release it into the law, the creative process, and I let it be, knowing it is done. And together we say, and so it is.